button. Let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started, because we've got a lot of news to get to today, some serious headlines to attend to, but we can't do it until the interwebs are connected and they look like they're working, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we're talking about trouble in the White House. Yeah, they have been in a little bit of a hole the past week, ever since we found out that Joe Biden allegedly stole classified, confidential, top secret documents and stuffed them under a seat cushion at his residence. Well, what we're going to do is go through that today because there's a lot more to unpack. The Republicans are demanding answers. They want the Democrats, in particular Ron Klain, to release the logs, release the notes, release the documents, release everything. And they're saying, well, we don't have some of this stuff, and we don't have anything to release to you. And they're saying, well, you should. And they're saying, no, we shouldn't. Trump didn't have it, and we're getting into this big game. But remember, that's not what we're really focused on, right? The original underlying allegation was this theft of documents, or this misappropriation of classified materials, or this possession of defense security information, or whatever. But now we're getting into cover-up territory, right? The cover-up is almost becoming worse than the crime. With Trump, they knew he had the documents. They wanted the documents. He said no. They came and got the documents. This one's a little bit different. Feels like nobody knew about these documents, and they tried to cover up that nobody knew about the documents, and then now everybody knows about the documents, and everybody's asking, how did we get here? So we're going to go through all of that. Now, we have the GOP individual named Rep. Comer has submitted a letter over to Ronald Klain, the White House Chief of Staff. Came out on January 15th, yesterday, and he's saying, we've got a lot of questions for you, buddy boy, and guess what? We're in charge now. So it's not Nancy Pelosi who's knocking at your door, okay? Now it's James Comer and Jim Jordan. So we're going to go through that letter and a statement from Representative Comer. We've also got McCarthy, who said that Constitution says we've got an obligation to engage in oversight. Congress has the authority, the duty to go and be a separate but co-equal branch of government and make sure the executive branch is not becoming a corrupt institution. So McCarthy's excited about that. Biden returned home. We'll see that clip. Jake Tapper on CNN, I think he's still there. They were opining about the security of Biden's garage and underneath that seat cushion. And we're going to go through a very interesting call from Ducey over from Fox News, because he called in to Fox and he gave this sort of like 5-minute synopsis of what's been going on. It sounded like he was calling in from a battlefield or something. You know, it was really the bowels of the White House. But it was an interesting phone call. And you could kind of get the sense that there's a little bit of panic in the air over there because of what they have found, and I guess continue to find, saying that they don't even know what they're looking for. They don't know what the scope of potential documents could be. Why? Because Biden's been in office for about 135 years. So you go, good Lord. I mean, that guy's been all over Washington. How many seat cushions do we have to check under? Holy moly. So they're having a tough time over there. We've also got Pencil Neck Schiff, who is going to make 2 appearances today. We've got 2 clips from him. One, where he's asked about whether he wants to, agree with the Biden administration, and 2, about whether or not he agrees with the defense assessment. We'll also hear from this representative who had a funny little brain flub, and we'll watch that happen in real time. And then we'll go back over and look at Andrew Weissman, who's another one of these Democrat lawyers who has the dog in the profile pic. I don't know what it is with Democrat lawyers, but they always have dogs in their profile pics. And sometimes they even put Trump chew toys in their profile pics. Okay, but anyways, the point is, another Democrat dog profile lawyer, Andrew Weissman, is kind of reversing course on this. Remember, he was hysterical over Donald Trump. And now he's kind of being hysterical about Joe Biden, rightfully so this time. So we'll go through that one. Then we'll check in with the actual president of the United States, because it's MLK Day, man. And Joe Biden, he's a very festive person. And so what he did is he sang a birthday song for somebody out there in the audience. Happy birthday to you. And then kind of goes off keister there a little bit. He also wants to warn America that if you think about challenging your government or addressing them from grievances, he might use F-15s to nuke you into oblivion. And we'll actually learn the real name of Martin Luther King III's wife, right? We'll make sure we can learn the name before we get into all of that. That's going to be in the first segment. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll change gears. We're going to go through some serious Twitter threads today because we've got a couple of them to get through, actually. First of all, Twitter Files 15 dropped. We're going to be talking about big pharmaceutical. They are censoring or requesting censoring of Americans, according to Twitter Files 15. It came out from Lee Fang. And it's not a super long Twitter file batch. It's about 12, I think, tweets. So we'll go through it relatively quickly in our second segment. Then in our third segment, we'll turn our attention back over to something that I don't think is officially called anything yet, but I would call them the AG files if I had to try on a label. But there is an attorney general out of Missouri. We've talked about this case a couple times. It's the big tech collusion lawsuit, Missouri, Louisiana versus Biden. This was the lawsuit where Fauci got deposed and others have been deposed. And we read through some of those depositions here. But there's this continual sort of discovery process that the parties are going through. Missouri is suing the Biden administration and everybody over there for colluding with big tech to censor Americans. And so there's this attorney general, his name is Andrew Bailey, and he posted 3 different tweet threads, part 1, 2, and 3, where he's just walking us through the emails. And in particular, he's going to show us 2 individuals that I want to highlight. One is Rob Flaherty, which is the White House digital director for the Biden administration. There's a clip here. He was working on the Beto campaign, and he was also working on basically every other Democrat you can think of. I think Klobuchar, Hillary, and so on. Younger guy, and we have a little bit of a clip from him, but he's involved in requesting all sorts of censorship. We also have in part 2, we'll learn more about him. And then in part 3, we'll hear from this guy, which is Brian Scully, who used to work at CISA, the Cyber Security Internet Security Agency group of Loserville, which is what he was formerly a part of. And we'll listen to him. And there's this wild, wild interview between him and this woman from Harvard. Okay, we're going to listen to an interview from Harvard. And you'll see why we make so much fun of them here on this channel. It's like a gift. I was listening to this today and I was like, oh my gosh, typical. All right. So as you can see, we've got 3 full segments to get to today. And so if you want to be a part of the show, my friends, the best place to do that is by going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can check out our community over there. We do member-only morning streams that are also streamed if you're a member on YouTube. And so don't forget, if you want to support the show and get extra content, you can join up at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or on YouTube becoming a member. Also, we're going to hear from our friends over at 4patriots.com later, but if you can't wait, you can go to 4patriots.com right now, use code Robert, buy at least one of everything in the store, and be very satisfied. You can also protect your retirement savings by checking out robertlikesgold.com. It is true. I do like gold. You can learn more about that at robertlikesgold.com. And finally, our law firm. I know many of you are not from Arizona, but we are a law firm in Arizona. We help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. We want to help them get through the criminal justice system and get things back on track. Free case evaluations online at rrlawaz.com. All right. So now let's get right into it because we've got some serious business to attend to. And now it's time. The Biden document dilemma continues, and Republicans are springing into action and demanding release the logs, release the files, release everything. Open up all of the seat cushions from Joe Biden's house and see what is in there, see what kind of confidential classified materials we can shake out of the cushions. In this video, we're going to talk about the actual demands from the Republicans, Representative Comer, seen here, and Kevin McCarthy. They're in charge of the House of Representatives now, and they're saying, we're coming in hot. We're not playing around anymore. They sent a letter over to Ron Klain demanding more access. But before we go through all of the latest updates, let's see what our president is up to, because he just returned home and he's walking across the lawn at the White House. And, you know, over the last couple days, over the weekend even, we've seen a number of additional documents come out. We've gone through the timeline here, and there's a video that we dropped over the weekend, if you missed that, that assembles new facts on the timeline, and we just keep finding new documents. New batch came out, 5 of them on Saturday. My goodness, where are all of these things falling out of? And so as Biden is walking across the lawn, you can see that a lot of other people have the same questions that we do here. Is he dropping classified documents out of his pockets. Can somebody check the inside of his coat?
Mr. President, are you sure there are no more classified documents?
I think I saw one fly out of there, right there. Oh, there it goes. It's up in the wind. Oh, flying away. Classified documents all over the place.
Mr. President, are you sure there are no more classified documents?
No, he's not sure. The White House is not sure. They have no idea. They don't know if they've got them all because there are so many crevices that Joe Biden has been involved in Washington over the last however many years. It's disgusting. But there are a lot of questions about this. And some of those questions are coming over from the news media. In fact, here's Jake Tapper. He's assessing all the damage that was done by the White House, and he's sitting around with his colleagues. CNN's Jake Tapper is having a nice conversation with a bunch of, I'm sure, very estimable individuals, talking about Biden's confidential document problem. And he makes an observation that many of us have made. That garage doesn't look all that secure.
He was referring to the photograph of the Biden garage. I don't know what your garage looks like, but here's the photograph. So there's Biden and his sweet 1967 Stingray. But look on the back left there. I don't know if we can push in there, but that looks like a mess. That's worse than my garage.
Yeah, it's a mess.
That's worse than my garage.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, that's not.
Yeah, Jake Tapper's garage. I can imagine his garage. You know, it's probably very fastidious. Although, who am I kidding? My garage is pretty fastidious myself. But you can see here, Sloppy Joe with just lampshades all over the place. Why do you keep an extra lampshade around? You don't need extra lampshades, okay? Put it up or donate it to Goodwill, Joe. Unless it's covering Hunter's bong. You know, those have big, long stems. He might have a couple footer there that needs to put a little cap on that to make sure that nobody can see it right up here.
Where I don't know exactly where the documents are in that garage, but that does not look like what a secure location would be.
No, it sure doesn't there, Jakey Poo. It doesn't look like that at all.
Where the documents are in that garage, but that does not look like what a secure location would be.
No, it doesn't, Jake. He's literally laughing at him like the rest of us. We're all laughing at him. All of us, even Jake Tapper. Humor binds us all. All right, so Jake Tapper's having some fun. He's going, this is a disaster. Now, we'll see, right? He's probably going to bring on a Republican and say, how dare you, sir? So we'll just wait for that one. But at the moment, he's laughing on that clip. Now, there's a little bit more serious tone that comes out of Peter Doocy, who is one of our favorites over at the White House. Long clip here. Let's go through it. Doocy calls into Fox News. It's the voice of Peter Doocy, White House correspondent. And let's see what they have to say.
Transparency. And I'm going through my notes, comparing what I heard at that press briefing yesterday with what we're learning today. And just a few things from my notes that we heard the press secretary say, keep in mind the day after they knew even more documents were located. She said, this is a quote, "We have been transparent." She said, and this is a quote, "This has been done in a transparent way."
Not
and
at all.
she said, another quote, "We are not avoiding anything here." They knew on Thursday night that there were more documents. That's what they're telling us about today.
Yeah.
And yet, on Friday, they claimed transparency. We now know that is just not the case.
At all. And so what he's talking about is the timeline that we spent some time putting together, but let's just revisit it real quickly here because Doocy brings up an excellent point, right? The cover-up is almost worse than the original crime. Everybody understands, okay? Even in the Donald Trump case, we were joking here, calling it overdue library book, saying they're making much ado about nothing. This is a political show of force. They're trying to charge him with crimes that Hillary got away with, that Obama got away with. And, you know, they all probably have classified confidential documents roaming around all over the place. Who knows what, you know, it's a giant federal bureaucracy. Do you think that all of their documents in order? Give me a break. So even with Trump, right, we say much ado about nothing. We were getting lampooned here by other people out there in the media, you know, on Twitter, these arguments, not us necessarily, nobody cares. But, you know, the idea that Trump was this, you know, monster criminal was insane to us over here. Now, same type of, I think, of a thing here, right? Okay, we understand that overdue, library books can be overdue and documents can be missing, and there is a process, I'm sure of it. And we all want classified documents to be secured in this country as a general rule. We don't want them floating around the ether. But their standard started all of this. They raided his residence, not the other way around. So they get to eat their own cooking. Point is, let's go back to this timeline. Now, all of that was what started it. All right, let's say Joe Biden does screw up. He is in possession of classified documents. He doesn't remember where he is. All right, do I think he should go to prison for that? Probably not. But when he covers it up, that adds much more to this entire saga. And Trump didn't do that. Everybody knew that Trump had the documents. He told them he had the documents. He said, they're my documents. And they said, no, they're not. We're going to come and get them. Joe Biden didn't know about the documents. And then when they found them, they covered them up to the American people. Now, what Peter Doocy was talking about in that first minute, we're coming back to him, is he's saying after the story broke, January 9th, CBS breaks the story. He's talking about Thursday night. Thursday night would have been the 12th. Okay, the 12th was probably, right around this time after the announcement. We had press briefings from Karine. We covered all of that. But she came out and she lied by omission on January 11th. Remember, because we were only talking about the first batch of documents. We didn't know about batches 2, 3, or 4 yet. They had not been released to us or unveiled to us. But the White House knew about that because they knew all about that as far back as December 20th, which is when Biden's personal counsel, the person we still don't know who that is, has communicated to the new U.S. Attorney Lausch that new documents had been found, the second batch. So by the time the story broke and by the time Karine was dragged in front of the American people to explain all of this, she knew about batches 1 and 2. And she got asked on that day, was there anything else, outstanding? And she said, look, I'm just not going to go into it any further, which is a lie by omission. She knew perfectly well. And batches 3 and 4 evidently showed up after the fact. Because Biden's lawyer goes, oh, crap, I got to get on a plane, flies out of the White House, special counsel Richard Stauber, jumps on a plane, flies over to Delaware in Wilmington because nobody has security clearances to look at these things. So Biden's personal lawyers who don't have security clearances, why were they there in the first place? And why are these other people going and rummaging through all of his documents when they can't access it? So that's the update on the timeline. Let's go back to Peter Doocy now as he carries on and explains more of his notes. He's saying this timeline is looking very fishy, and it feels like they are trying to manipulate some of the evidence and cover some of this up.
Well, and that's what the special counsel is trying to figure out. But something else that's really interesting that we did not know, that we're just learning today for the first time. They're telling us that the president's personal attorneys who are being assigned to go and see if there's any classified information don't have active security clearances. So every time that they find something, they have to stop. And it sounds like because they keep telling us they're finding all these additional documents, there is a lot of searching and then stopping and then calling the Justice Department and saying, hey, we have some stuff here that we can't look at. Don't know how it got here, or at least not prepared to share how it got here. But we need somebody with a security clearance to come by. But the timeline here is what is ultimately the problem, because Julian, as you know from working in the national security part of the government.
The timeline, the revelation, the cover-up is way worse than just a couple documents. And they knew about a lot of this, and they held it from us. And even when they started talking about it, they still held it back. They didn't tell us about the December 20th documents.
This is something that happens. Like, people leave government, they discover that they have classified materials. There is a process where you contact the archives, they do a review, and then they figure out what's going on. Fine. But that's not what the problem is here. The issue is, number one, we're finding out that the president made some direction to his personal attorneys to cooperate with the National Archives, a search that began in November.
In November, why were they there? Why were they directed to go and start moving boxes out? Was it all routine? We also, where people were asking about their fee agreements and what it included, what's in the scope of representation, right? Lawyers, I am a lawyer. We have a law firm. We represent many, many people every year. And we have fee agreements that define the scope of our work. We're going to represent you on this case, not on that case. We're going to do this for you, but not that. And we don't put in there, we're going to come to your residence and, rummage through your cabinets. Now, to be fair, before I was a criminal defense lawyer, when I was an intern, I did some bankruptcy work, and I would go over to meet people at their houses and stuff like that. But that was defined in the scope of the work, and I wasn't going through their closets without them being there, right? I would go meet them at their residence and say, go get me that statement, go get me that record. But this is a whole different category. And what prompted it? What initiated the search in the first place?
Didn't know about it before the midterms. Didn't know about it all of December. Just finding out about it now. The other problem is somebody wrote, whether or not the president knew that he had all this material at his house, somebody wrote a statement for him to read on Tuesday in Mexico City, where he's just talking about one box, nothing concerning the residents. It's incomplete at best. It's misleading at worst. Was that on purpose?
Misleading at worst?
We just don't know.
Yes, it was, Peter. And so that was on Tuesday. So he was in Mexico on that Tuesday. That was the 17th. No, that was the 10th, the day after the story broke. So who prepared that statement? That's a great question. That would have been on the 10th. We'll have to add that to the mind map.
And Peter, real quick, one last question here. What do you think is going on in that White House press room right now with the comms team? They're seeing this breaking news. Obviously, the media is going to be picking up on it. You've been in that press room the last few days with some pretty contentious back and forth with Karine Jean-Pierre. They're now going to have to answer why they knew about these new documents Thursday night, but said nothing about it during the press conference yesterday.
This whole second batch of documents.
As they claim they are cooperating and they are being transparent. I believe it was you who asked the other day, what is the White House hiding? What do you think's happening in that PR room right now?
They're freaked out. They're freaked out, man.
I think that there's probably a lot of four-letter words that would not be suitable for broadcast in the press room right now.
They're freaking out.
The people in the press shop, and Karine Jean-Pierre was kind of alluding to this yesterday, they are being put in a tough spot by the president's personal attorneys and by the special counsel's office, because Karine Jean-Pierre said that she was not involved in the decision to wait and wait and wait to disclose these discoveries to the public.
That's right. We have a clip of that when we played that last week. And I'm wondering if we have that here. Yes, we do. Let's dig this clip up. I didn't know.
I just want to press you on that point about the idea of disclosures when it's appropriate. You describe it as a process, but it sort of feels like a strategy, a communication strategy to protect the president from political damage. Was it the hope and expectation here that this would have remained a private matter and not have been subject to public disclosure?
Look, Stephen, that's your version of the case. I've been very clear here, and I've answered that question multiple times in different versions, right, in the last couple of days. Look, want to be very clear. There's a process here. We are going to respect the process. This is all part of the Department of Justice process, and we are cooperating fully. We are cooperating fully in this process.
That's great.
And,
but what did you do before?
Again, the president believes that the Justice Department and its independence needed to be restored. That's what you have seen under this administration the last 2 years. And I want to be consistent in what I'm saying. I want to be prudent in what I'm saying when I say that we are going to defer any questions related to this to the Department of Justice and any other items that you have. If you want to talk to the Department of Justice, you're free to talk to the White House counsel office. I know you guys have been in touch with my colleagues there.
We have done both, but let me just ask you, because oftentimes in the careers of White House press secretaries, there comes a time where they are asked, what they knew and when they knew it. Were you or any member of your staff involved in the crafting of a strategy as to when this disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday?
No.
Okay.
Oh, did you have a question?
Okay, one more time. In advance of the CBS story being published. So just we're aware of that. That's what this date is. Right here. So from CBS, we have, Here, let's blow this screen up here. This was the timeline. All this happened before CBS broke the story. All of this. November 2nd, November 4th, November 8th, November 9th. Garland assigned U.S. attorney. Biden's lawyers are all over the place. Biden's lawyers find a second batch of documents. December 20th. Special counsel is needed after a briefing on January 5th. Apparently, Karine didn't know about it until after January 9th, right? According to that message. She said that, not us.
And when they knew it. Were you or any member of your staff involved in the crafting of a strategy as to when this disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday?
No.
Before January 9th, were you involved? The answer is no. On the record.
Disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday.
No.
Okay. All right. She
be
said no.
careful.
She said no. So I guess you have to take her at her word on that one. Karine Jean-Pierre didn't do it. So I guess I don't know what she was doing over those last couple months. Biden was handling all of this on his own. Then who prepared that message for him? That press message, that press release message on the 10th when he made that statement. I guess she could have, right after the January 9th story breaks. She meets him and releases the story with him, I guess. But boy, it would be a big problem if she had met with him and talked about this stuff before then, because that would make her a liar.
But somebody was, and we don't know who. And so the press shop, you kind of have to sympathize with some of these guys a little bit, because they're just finding out about the drip from the personal attorneys, from the special counsel's office.
Yeah.
And so they've got their hands full. They I'm sure will take advantage of the federal holiday on Monday.
Yeah, today.
When we don't expect there to be a press briefing
there isn't
to
one.
make sure that everything is set.
There wasn't one, because why would there be? If they can avoid talking about this, they certainly can.
But at the rate they're going with all these disclosures, who knows? Maybe this isn't the last disclosure of the weekend. Don't know.
Yep. Well, we found one that came out on Saturday, and it is another 5 documents. So the timeline we're getting more clarity on. And we learned over the weekend, if you missed the weekend video, we learned that the actual documents were discovered on November 2nd, not on November 4th. They've been very, very sort of opaque with the timeline. And so we did a prior video on that. If you missed that, we really built out more of this timeline, and we're going to continue to do so. So that's what's going on over there. Now, Tapper says it's not a secure facility, and we have more to attend to because the Republicans are diving into this. And so let's take a look at what Kevin McCarthy says before we jump over to Representative Comer. The new Speaker of the House says that the Congress has a constitutional duty, a mandate to act as a co-equal branch of government and to hold other aspects of government accountable. Here he is.
Congress has an independent constitutional obligation to oversee all aspects of the Justice Department, and that includes special counsels as well.
Tell them,
and
Kev.
so we will have a role in overseeing what's transpiring here. What's real concerning to me is how justice is applied, and is it applied equally? Why do you raid President Trump? His wasn't just lock, was padlock. They knew it was there. They could have come and taken it any time they wanted. They were communicating with one another. Now we're finding time and again a locked garage door that opens and closes by a push of the button. How many years has this vice president who's been in office
Top secret
for more
security.
than 40 years had these documents?
You
Who's
get a
been
frequency
in and out
scanner?
of there? This is just hypocrisy, and I'm tired of this Justice Department that we found that
Me
went
too.
after parents and others, that they utilize it to go after people because they have different political beliefs. That is what's wrong with government, and this is a prime example of why we passed this week a new select committee that will fall under Jim Jordan's committee for the weaponization of government, that we can look into what the FBI has been doing from Twitter and everywhere else.
That's right. Jim Jordan's going to be in charge of the new Weaponization of Government Committee, and we are looking forward to it. We can't wait until they get started. And so we're going to go over now to Representative Comer, and he is going to walk us through a letter that he sent over to Ronald Klain, which is the White House Chief of Staff. And he's saying, look, we are on that Oversight Committee. Okay, we are now in charge. There's a new president in town of Congress. That's us, boy. In a minute. right after we talk about our friends over at Goldco, because as you know, I also like gold. I like letters to Congress, from Congress to the White House, but I also like gold. And so we got to talk about it for just a quick, brief minute here. But my friends, if you have an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, things are scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30+ trillion, and inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends at Goldco. See how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com. They'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. Very easy. robertlikesgold.com. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureaus and good friends of the show. And I do like gold at robertlikesgold.com. All right, so now let's take a look at what Congress is actually doing. McCarthy says we're in charge, we're coming in hot, and Representative Comer is joining at his flank. Here he is explaining what they're focused on Fox News.
Let's bring in Kentucky Congressman James Comer, chairman of the
National Archives is supposed to brief both the chairman and ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. When Mar-a-Lago was raided, we reached out to National Archives requesting a briefing to know exactly what type of documents Trump supposedly had in his possession and why they triggered a raid on Mar-a-Lago. All they did was refer us to the Justice Department. Here we have Biden doing the same thing with multiple locations. We still have not heard anything from National Archives. It's very disappointing.
Because they don't care. It was never about the books, right? It was never about the library books or the actual documents. It was always about political warfare against your political enemies. So Comer sent a letter in. We're going to read through that in a quick minute, but let's see what else he says about his new letter.
Who do you worry, Congressman Comer, is on that visitor's log?
Well, it could be anyone, considering all the money the Biden family has received from our adversaries around the world. Your guess is as good as mine. But we know that Hunter Biden lived there for several years. We know that Hunter Biden has a history of having problems with landlords with respect to who he lets in on the premises of different properties that he was leasing. So, we've got a lot of concerns here. Now, you go back to the way the FBI and DOJ handled the Mar-a-Lago raid. They took security camera footage. They took all the video, so they know exactly who was in and out of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, while they were rummaging through Melania's closet, did they rummage through Jill Biden's closet?
We have no,
because why would they?
No idea who was in and out of President Biden's home. They didn't take security cameras. They never released visitor logs. They didn't raid the residence. In fact, after the general counsel was appointed, we still find out that President Biden's personal attorneys are still rummaging around what essentially would be a crime scene, trying to find information.
Don't even have access.
To turn over. So, this whole process has been handled poorly. It shows there's a two-tier system of justice in America, and we want to know exactly who all had access to those classified documents at the Biden home.
Yeah, and there are also questions.
We do want to know exactly who has access to those documents. And so let's take a look at the letter that Representative Comer actually sent over to the White House. January 15th, from the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, now led by Chairman James Comer and Ranking Minority Member Jamie Raskin. The letter goes over to Mr. Ron Klain, White House Chief of Staff for the Biden White House. The letter says, Dear Mr. Klain, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability is continuing to investigate President Biden and his mishandling of classified documents, highly classified. It is troubling that classified documents have been improperly stored at the home of President Biden for at least 6 years, raising questions about who may have reviewed or had access to classified information. Additionally, President Biden's personal attorneys who do not possess security clearances and White House staff continue to access and search the president's residence in Wilmington, Delaware for classified documents. Comer says, given the serious national security implications, the White House must provide the Wilmington's residence visitor log. Now, there's debate about this. I think their response is we don't keep visitor logs for private residences, so we don't have one. He says, as chief of staff, you are the head of executive office of the president, and you bear responsibility to be transparent with the American people on these important issues relating to your handling of this matter. President Biden's mishandling of classified materials raises the issue of whether he has jeopardized our national security. Without a list of individuals who have visited his residence, the American people will never know who had access to these highly sensitive documents. The committee demands transparency into whether any individuals with foreign connections to the Biden family gained access to the Biden residence and the classified documents that he mishandled for years. The committee, now in Republican control, is also concerned that White House aides and President Biden's personal attorneys searched the Wilmington residence, knowing that the DOJ was already investigating the matter, which is a great point. If they already found the documents at Penn Biden Center back in November, they kind of knew they had a document problem, right? Like, that's not supposed to be there. Okay. Be very careful when you open up all of the rest of these cabinets and seat cushions. So then at that point, you say, maybe we should be careful with all of our documents everywhere. You know, they probably sat Joe down and said, Joe, listen, we need one answer from you. Your political life depends on it. Where are the documents? It's like a scene out of a thriller. Joe Biden looks closely at his lawyer, and slowly, a tiny drop of drool falls from his lip. Ugh! They'd have no idea, so they have to continue to rummage around everywhere in order to find these things. Personal lawyers for the president first discovered classified documents at the Penn Biden Center on November 2nd. The National Archives informed the DOJ of Biden's improper storage of documents on November 4th. Our timeline matches that. On November 14th, Merrick Garland tasked Attorney John Lausch with reviewing whether a special counsel should be appointed. Despite that Department of DOJ initiating its review of the matter, reports indicate that the White House staff and President Biden's attorneys continued to search his property. On December 20th, over 1 month after Mr. Lausch began his review, only then did Biden's personal lawyers notify Mr. Lausch of additional classified documents that were found. So my question is, did they, my understanding was, we're still trying to figure out when they found that second batch of documents. They found the original batch on the 2nd, which we learned over the weekend. Then they called the DOJ on the 4th. On the 14th, then they appointed John Lausch. December 20th, over 1 month afterwards, they found additional classified documents. But I thought they found them on that day. Like, I don't know if they found them earlier and then delayed before they, I don't think that's what happened, but I don't know. On January 5th, Mr. Lausch notified Attorney General that a special counsel was warranted, and that came from Garland's statement. That notification still did not dissuade the president's lawyers from accessing his residence. Yes, they went back to Delaware, into Wilmington, on January 11th and January 12th, accessing his residence then. On January 12th, the Attorney General then announced the appointment of Robert Hur, the special counsel. Nonetheless, President Biden has also returned to Delaware this weekend without any reported law enforcement ever conducting an independent search for classified materials. Yeah, Biden did go home this weekend. He went to another residence. In fact, we have his schedule readily available, and so we can confirm that. You see, out of pool call, he arrives at the White House. That was this morning. From Monday the 16th, arrives back at the White House tonight. He was out of town, though. President arrives in Newcastle, Delaware. That was on Sunday, 3:40. On Friday, received the daily briefing, and then he departs and arrives in Delaware. All right, so he's still sort of flying all over the place. I guess my question is, are they tracking him down to try to see if there are documents falling out of his pants? On January 10th and 13th, 2023, the committee, this one, wrote the White House counsel's office to inform the White House that the committee here in Congress, our committee now, has initiated an investigation into Biden's possession of highly classified documents from his time as VP. This letter is a supplement to those requests. So Comer says, all right, Ronald Klain. He says, all right, Ron, to assist the committee in investigating Biden's mishandling of classified info, we need these materials no later than January 30th. Number one, all documents and communications related to the searches of Biden's home and other locations by Biden aides for classified documents, including but not limited to the dates of the searches and the identity of the aides. The visitor log of Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home from January 2021 to present. To schedule delivery of responsive documents, please give us a phone call. And we remind you, sir, that the Committee on Oversight is the principal oversight committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, and we have broad authority to investigate any matter at any time under the House rules. Thank you for your prompt attention to this important investigation. Sincerely, James Comer. Copied to Slippery Jamie Raskin, formerly on the January 6th Select Committee. So what Ronald Klain will very likely do with this is turn it over to the White House counsel. The White House counsel will just take a look at it, probably laugh about it, maybe fold it up, use it as a coaster, or just put it right in the shredder. Don't know. Then it will be up to the Republicans to do something else about it, but it is a good start. We always like a nice letter. So that's from Comer. Release the logs. It's being demanded. And the White House is having a difficult time communicating about this, which is largely why they are not communicating about it, because it's so difficult for them to craft together a cohesive narrative. But some Democrats are out there explaining their take on this. One that we're familiar with is called Adam Schiff, lovingly known here as Pencil Neck Watermelon Head. He was on ABC, and he was asked about this. Hey, Adam, you are somebody who was on the Intelligence Committee for a long time, probably getting booted off there pretty soon. And you were pretty hysterical when Donald Trump had those documents. Do you feel the same way about Joe Biden now?
The White House knew about this on November 2nd, so that was almost a full week before the midterm elections. We didn't learn about it. The public wasn't informed until this week, and it was only after the story was out there. Reporters were asking questions. Should they have been more forthcoming? Should this information have been revealed earlier?
Yes.
I think the administration will need to answer that question. I'm going to reserve judgment until they do. But I think it's important to point out.
I'm going to reserve judgment until they do. But you just sounded like you judged them. They will have to answer that question, but I'm going to reserve judgment until they do. So they should answer that question, though, I guess.
Earlier?
I think the administration will need to answer that question. I'm going to reserve judgment until they do. But I think it's important to point out that the Biden approach was very different in the sense that it looks, as far as we can tell, that it was inadvertent that these documents were in these locations.
Inadvertent. All right, so it looks very different. Trump is a criminal monster who is a Republican, by the way, and he is a threat to our eternal reign and power. But he deserves to be punished, and Joe Biden doesn't, because Joe Biden's an innocent, nice guy. Here is more Adam Schiff. Now, to Adam Schiff credit on this one, he's having a difficult time splitting this one apart. Remember, when Donald Trump had those classified documents gobbled up, they demanded a damage assessment so that they could what the heck? Okay, the stream is like super delayed over on YouTube. Strange. All right. So anyways, we're here with Adam Schiff.
You raised the possibility
Schiff.
of this national security assessment. Is it possible that national security was jeopardized here as many, including you, raised that possibility with the Mar-a-Lago documents?
I don't think we can exclude the possibility without knowing more of the facts. We have asked for an assessment in the intelligence community of the Mar-a-Lago documents. I think we ought to get that same assessment of the documents found in the think tank as well as the home of President Biden. I'd like to know what these documents were.
Me
I'd like
too.
to know what the IC's assessment is, whether there was any risk of exposure and what the harm would be, and whether any mitigation needs to be done. I think that would be appropriate and consistent with what we requested in the case of Mar-a-Lago.
That's true. Actually, that's fair. He did say that, right? It is consistent. It is consistent. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for consistent standards. Now, why is he flipping on this one all of a sudden? He's one of the most partisan hacks ever. Are they trying to get rid of Joe Biden? Are they trying to get rid of him? Does he want to see him gone? Do they all want to see him gone? Because there's a little bit of a flipperoo kind of a thing happening here around the margins. Or what, are they just consistent? Like he's just being consistent, like Adam Schiff is just being consistent because he thinks standards should apply evenly to both parties? Come on. Come on, that's ridiculous. Like it's not just he's being, fair. That's ridiculous. So what else is it, obviously? I think they probably want Joe Biden gone because it can't be that, That's nonsense. All right, here's another individual. This was a fun clip because he got hit with a pretty interesting question. CBS Face the Nation is also wondering why Joe Biden is botching this so badly. They asked this representative, any idea why his lawyers who don't have security clearances would be rummaging around his offices looking for documents that they're not supposed to see?
Can you explain to me, for the search that we just laid out that was happening at the president's home, for the current president, his Wilmington home on Thursday, why would he send lawyers who don't have a security clearance to search for classified material?
I'm not sure, and we don't know the circumstances of that, but certainly the documents leave the vice president's office and have to be stored somewhere.
They do have to be stored somewhere. And so Joe Biden's seat cushions are just about as good as anything else. I don't know. I don't know why. And she hit him with that question, poor guy. You can see that little, wasn't real prepared for that answer on that one.
Why would he send lawyers who don't have a security clearance to search for classified material?
I'm not sure.
No idea.
And we don't know the circumstances of that. But certainly the documents leave the vice president's office and have to be stored somewhere.
Sometimes you just get tired of carrying boxes, honestly. It's like, gosh. I got a whole stack of mail somewhere that I'm pretty sure I don't need to respond to any of this, pretty sure I'm good. But then, your electricity goes off or something and you're like, oh, I should have paid that bill, or something like that. Like, is that what Joe Biden did here? He's like, I'll return those documents later. Just put them in the stack, put them in the stack. And then 6 years go by and the stack just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You got to store them somewhere, man. All right. So now it's not just a couple of these Democrats who are asking or being, dealt difficult questions. We also have this individual. Remember Andrew Weissman? Yes, he went to NYU Law. He works over at MSNBC. He spent 20 years at the DOJ, 10 as a defense attorney, he says, okay. Lifetime inveterate New Yorker. New York Times bestseller. And he's got 220,000 followers on Twitter. And like many Democrat lawyers, you'll notice that they do this thing where they put their dogs in their profile, which I love dogs too. It's a nice, and he has a painting of his dog as well. Isn't that something? It's just beautiful. So, I'm sure it's a real good boy or girl, beautiful young gal, but it's just these profile pics. It's just an interesting thing. It's all I can say. It's just interesting. There's other guys who do it too. You know who we're talking about. All right. So I guess that's the point, but he makes public appearances and all sorts of stuff, right? That's who he is. So he's not afraid to get out there in public. Now, here is what he posted about this most recent development. And Weissman is very, very aggressive towards Trump. And he was the person, we played many clips of him melting down. He's going to prison. He's got indictments coming, basically guaranteed, basically was promising an indictment more or less in the analysis that we covered here, generalizing his statements. But he said this, the White House keeps digging a hole deeper. Uh-oh, this is the current White House, not the Trump White House. This got 2.6 million views. Uh-oh. Keeps digging a hole deeper. True. They have failed to answer so many questions. which is a very strange thing if all of this is an innocent mistake. Total number of government docs found and precisely where, and what levels of classification. Why wasn't this all revealed in November or December? Great questions, Andrew. And so I gave that one a nice big like because it's a very, very good question. Now, his followers are unhappy with him. Lori says, "Oh, I guess you're done with this president? You have known about everything for years. You have knowingly lied to the public. The change of tone hints that you guys have picked your next candidate. You can't keep covering for the big guy." And they're unhappy with him. And so it's a lot of fun as the tables turn. Democrats are angry. Or are they turning? Or are they just waiting for the dust to settle? We'll see. Our attention now turns over to the White House, where Biden was giving some speeches today on the very honorable MLK Day. And here's what he had to say. When asked about guns, he said that, first of all, we're getting rid of assault weapons, and then we're going to bring our F-15s and nuke any of you MAGA extremist dissenters out there who challenge our reign.
I'm going to get assault weapons banned. I did it once. I'm going to do it again. There's no social redeeming value. Deer aren't wearing.
Hold that mic
Kevlar
away from your
vests
face
out
there, Joe.
What the hell you need a assault? No, I'm serious. And ban the number of bullets that go in a magazine. There's no need for any of that.
No need.
I love my right-wing friends who talk about the tree of liberty is water with the blood of patriots. If you need to work about taking on the federal government, you need some F-15s.
F-15s.
You don't need an AR-15. I'm serious. Think about it. Think about the rationale for this. It's about money.
It's about money. Guns are about money. Yeah, all right. So that's his clip on this day. And he also sang a very interesting song. So while the sort of political world is melting down around him, he's working on assault weapons. But he also sang an interesting song today. And let's follow along. Of course, we like to celebrate birthdays. But there was an interesting song that the president sang today. Of course, we know that Martin Luther King's wife, Martin Luther King III's wife, her name is Andrea Waters King. You can see it right there highlighted in blue. Arndrea. There was a group song of happy birthday that was supposed to be sung for this woman, Andrea Waters King. Her birthday is January 6th. And so happy birthday, Andrea Waters King. Happened to fall on Martin Luther King's birthday. Isn't that beautiful? And so Biden was there today at an MLK breakfast. It was hosted by the very infamous Reverend Al Sharpton. And it was Andrea's birthday. And Biden led the group in a beautiful song.
But congratulations today, the honorees, including your wife, who I understand is a birthday today?
Amazing.
Well, look, my wife has a rule in her family. When somebody's birthday, you sing happy birthday. You ready?
Ready, boys?
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you. Well,
wow.
It's hell turning 30, but you got to.
It's hell turning 30. It's hell turning 30. Valerie? Vanessa?
Happy birthday. You ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you. Well, it's hell turning 30, but you got to.
Happy birthday. All right. Yay. Happy birthday. All right, my friends. And so that is our president. Of course, we will continue to follow all of the confidential documents, dilemmas that continue to unfold. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. Thank you for subscribing and following us along as we cover this. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Zulu super chat from Zulu in the house. What's up, Zulu? It's been a long time, my good friend. Here he is. He says it's all good. Joe psychically released the documents ahead of time, which he can do independent from linear perception of time because that's how presidential psychic skills work. Better luck next time, suckers. I love it, Zulu. You guys should do it. You guys should. I'm not saying you specifically, but all like this. This is fair game. It's all fair game. Yes, all the mocking, all of the crazy theories that we were talking about. It's all applicable. It is. Joe should say that. He should come out with that defense. I did it magically. Unclassified. Don't worry about it. It's all fair. It's all fair now. I love it. Personally, I think it's a kind of a terrible thing for the country that this is what's happening, but they started it. So I guess we'll be here for it. Thank you for the support, Zulu, and for the great comment, because it's true. That's how our government works now. And everybody on Locals is saying the same thing. Zulu hit the nail on the head. Yeah. All right. So thank you very much, Zulu. Very generous of you. And it's good to see you back in the chat, Zulu. I miss you from time to time. Good to see Jess Cows, K Bean, Zulu. We've got TW is in the house, modding down the fort for us, and good to see everybody. All right. And so let's get back to our second segment because we've got some Twitter files now to attend to before we jump into some AG files. We've just got a whole bunch of stuff. And so let's get this puppy queued up so that we can get right into it. Now, and I see JC the Music Man is also over on the Locals chat. Good to see JC over there. What's up, Richard Jack? We got Matt Gamble. All right. So let's get right to it. Twitter files 15. Big Pharma jumps into the fray. They don't like what they see on Twitter either. And so like everybody else, the politicians, the corporations, and everybody else, they decide what should be allowed to be shared. We go to the Twitter files. Lee Fang published this one January 16th, 8:30 a.m. He says, new piece from the Twitter files. How the pharmaceutical industry lobbied social media to shape content around the jab policy. Big Pharma putting their boot now on the back of big tech. The push included direct pressure from Pfizer partner BioNTech to censor activists demanding low-cost generic vaccines for low-income countries. Okay, so this has nothing to do with taking the jab or not, mandating whether you take it or not, whether, its efficacy, none of that stuff. It's Pfizer has a product to push, and they want to get paid for it. In 2020, Lee says, it was clear that the pandemic would require rapid innovation. Early on, there was a push to make the solution, what's that word? Equitable. An international partnership to share ideas, technology, new forms of medicine needed to be developed to rapidly solve the crisis. There's a link to a place called Madison Patent Pool and a news release that came out June 16, 2022. A new agreement under CTAP aims to improve global access to COVID testing technologies, published just last year. A new open transparent sublicense agreement between the medicines, this company and that company, and a South African pharmaceutical company, Biotech Africa, will accelerate the manufacture and the sale of antibody technology around the world. The World Health Organization welcomes the sublicense agreement, the first of its kind. CTAP was set up in 2020 to facilitate the timely, equitable, and affordable access to COVID-19 health products. Equitable and affordable. And there was a lot of that talk. You may remember during the COVID era, the pandemic era, who's going to get the first jabs? Should certain different demographics get it? Should certain age groups get it? What about other countries? Certainly don't want a bunch of, rich, entitled people to only have access to it, right? But global drug giants didn't think about it that way. They saw the crisis as an opportunity for unprecedented profit. Behind closed doors, Pharma launched a massive lobbying blitz to crush any effort to share patents or IP for new COVID-related medicine, including for therapeutics and vaccines. And we watched Moderna and Pfizer and all of these companies watch their profits just tick up quarter after quarter. Some of them went from, $100 million companies to 50 billion in a matter of 24 months. It was insane. The lobby group that represents biopharma, including Moderna and Pfizer, wrote the newly elected Biden administration. Biden wins, takes office, they start sending letters. They were demanding that the U.S. government sanction any country attempting to violate patent rights and create generic low-cost COVID medicine or vaccines. If any other country reverse engineered this stuff and started, providing it to their people, that would undercut their profits, man. And they needed to get that money. They needed to get paid. So they started writing to Biden. Drug lobby asks Biden to punish foreign countries for pushing low-cost vaccines. All these people who say, we care about lives and we care about saving, blah, 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 blah. All right. Well, then why don't you just give all of your vaccines to all of the poor countries all around the world, all those extra vaccines? And you may have seen those clips of the Moderna and the Pfizer CEOs and all of them saying, we have to throw away a bunch of jabs now because people don't want to take them. People aren't getting boosted. So we got to throw all these things away. They want they want you to, yes, buy them. It's fruit that goes bad. They've got to throw it away. From The Intercept, they say President Joe Biden's administration is being asked to punish Hungary, Colombia, Chile, and other countries for seeking to ramp up the production of vaccines and therapeutics without express permission from the pharmaceutical companies. The sanctions are being urged by the drug industry, which has filed hundreds of pages of documents to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative outlining the alleged threat posed by any effort to challenge the basic intellectual property protections in response to the pandemic. The drug industry has sharply criticized any attempt to share patents or technological knowledge, despite the global need, because it undercuts their profits. According to one estimate, wealthy countries represent just 16% of the world's population, already secured more than half of the COVID vaccine contracts. And the current projections show that much of the middle income and developing world will not achieve widespread vaccines for years. Meanwhile, they're just dumping them all in the trash here. So, very curious how they will preen to everybody about how much they want to save lives and how this is all for the good of humanity, while neglecting to share with us that they are demanding that other countries don't get their life-saving miracle products because they're not paying for it. Lee tells us that brings us over to Twitter. The global lobbying blitz from these big pharma companies include direct pressure on social media. BioNTech, which developed Pfizer's vaccine, reached out to Twitter to request that Twitter directly censor users tweeting at them to ask for generic, low-cost vaccines. Not misinformation, not disinformation, not anything wrong. They're just asking for an alternative offering. Okay, look, if you're going to sell one here in America for 20 or 40 bucks or whatever it is, do you think you can just maybe, buy one, get one free, give one here, give one over there? Like what, what's the deal? You say it's going to save everybody. And you have the capacity to build it. Now you don't want them to build their own because they can't buy it from you? And then when people say you should give them that, right, when you should act as the company that has the power to do it, it's just people sharing their opinion. You should create another product and offer it to other people. Here's what happened. Somebody named Jasmine, well, we're not going to be able to read this message because evidently it is in German. It says, Dear Frau, Mr. So-and-so, something, Freig, 11/12, not even going to, COVID-19 is right there. It says here, there's a BioNTech Twitter account with this hashtag, it looks like. Something. Is there anything you can do about this? Thank you. Jasmine Altovich, Director of External Communications from BioNTech. All right, letter goes out. We don't like that message. Twitter reps respond. This came in from Pharma. You can see it down here in the bottom left. Twitter's reps respond quickly to the Pharma request. Pharma request also backed by a German government. A lobbyist in Europe asked the content moderation team to monitor the accounts of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and other hashtags like hashtag people's vaccine. They're saying that, people are saying, look, we're donating or dedicating billions of dollars to you pharmaceutical companies to go, Operation Warp Speed, all this crap. So it's a global good. It's a public good. Just give it away to everybody. Because you say it's going to save everybody's lives, so just give it away. But they don't want to do that. So when Pfizer and AstraZeneca, when people are tweeting at them, hashtag people's vaccine, they say, can you please stop that? It's making us look really, really bad. Nina sent this one to a bunch of people on December 13, 2020. It says, hi, Twitter people, LP and S, all of these people. It says, we got contacted by BioNTech as well as the German Federal Office for information security. This is a Twitter email. For an online campaign targeting the pharmaceutical companies developing the COVID vax. This is December, right? Election just happened, 2020. Kamala and Joe had said, no, we're not going to take it if it comes out before the election. Then it came out right after the election, conveniently. And now Joe and Biden go take it. Vaccine is announced for tomorrow. Developing the vaccine is announced for tomorrow. They say there's a bunch of hashtags that are going to jump out. Join CTAP, hashtag people's vaccine. Could you support us and have an eye on the relevant hashtags in the following accounts? And they detail them all there for us as well. BioNTech Group, Pfizer, Pfizer German, Pfizer Moderna _TX, AstraZeneca. Nina says the authorities are warning about, quote, serious consequences of the action, i.e. posts and floods of comments that may violate the terms of service, as well as a, quote, takeover of user accounts are to be expected. Especially the personal accounts of the management of the vaccine manufacturers are said to be targeted. Accordingly, fake accounts could also be set up. Okay, so it's like a preemptive drop. Developing the COVID vaccine is announced for tomorrow. Starting at 9 a.m., there's a whole new campaign to take out fake accounts. The German authorities also refer to the source, amongst others. It's a permissible campaign. So the German government's now involved as well. Please let us know if there are any questions. Thank you very much. All of this being communicated to Twitter for security support. Lee says, these potential, quote, fake accounts that probably didn't exist, that Twitter monitored for protesting Pfizer, oh, they were real people. They weren't fake accounts. They were real people. Here's one that the Twitter team flagged for potential terms of use violations. Lee says, I talked to Terry, this person right here, 74-year-old retired bricklayer in the UK. Is like for what? Like terrorist camps? Like constructing bricks for terrorist fortresses or something? Is he the leader? He's 70s. He's the senior fellow of the Bricklayer ISIS Association. Let's see what Terry said. Terrorist Terry said, Dear Alberta, here's the post from Terrorist Terry. Terry Broff says, Dear Alberta, SB cancel and so on. 9 out of 10 people in poor countries are going to miss out on the vaccine. Will Pfizer and biotech and AstraZeneca join CTAP to ensure that everyone everywhere can be safe? We need a hashtag people's vaccine. Wow. Okay, this is unbelievable. He should definitely be censored. Lee says, it's not clear what actions Twitter ultimately took on this particular request. Several Twitter employees noted in subsequent messages that none of this activism constituted abuse. It's a totally innocent statement. He's a nice dude, man. He's just saying, can we get everybody else the jab? I mean, we don't want to be like keeping other people out. Several Twitter employees noted in subsequent messages, none of this activism is abuse. They probably agreed with him, but the company continued to monitor his tweets. In a separate push, Pfizer and Moderna, the lobbying group Bio, fully funded a special content moderation campaign designed by a contractor called Public Goods Projects, which work with Twitter to set content moderation rules around, quote, COVID misinformation. Bio spent $1.275 million over to the campaign, which is conducted by a private contractor. Public Good Projects, part of which is revealed through tax forms. You can see that here. The PGP campaign, called Stronger, helped Twitter create content moderation bots, select which public health accounts got verification, and it helped crowdsource content takedowns. Let's look at this. Name and business address. We have Public Good Projects, Mount Vernon, Alexandria, Virginia. Consulting organization, got $800,000 and $883,000. More consulting for live media. And there's probably some more money elsewhere. But you can see a lot of money is being paid. Here's another tax record, it looks like. Here they say, this looks like a screenshot from maybe their software. How to report accounts on Twitter. Tap the post, click report tweet, click it's suspicious or spam, click it's something else. How to report, all right, so these are just literal scrollers, okay, who are little hallway, digital hall monitors who are censoring people off the internet because they're saying bad things about COVID. They're not even saying bad things about COVID. In this case, they're saying bad things about the pharmaceutical companies who are not being equitable enough. They always want to come and preen to the rest of us. But they're not even equitable in themselves. Unbelievable. Now, in a separate push, they continued. Many of the tweets that the BIO-funded campaign focused on were truly unhinged misinfo, like claims that the jabs had, weird things in them, which were all debunked and all conspiracies and not true. But others long lobbied Twitter were more of a gray area, like vaccine passports and other mandates. They were targeting. Stronger wrote this. President Biden's new strategy will impact 2/3 of U.S. workers. We remember that. Yeah, a lot of people were going through very difficult times back at that moment. President Biden unveiled a 6-point strategy last week to turn the tide on the pandemic. Here's another person who apparently posted an illegal tweet. Stephanie Seneff looks like an Al-Qaeda terrorist. Says if a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person have roughly the same capacity to carry, what difference does all of these checks and balances matter? Why do we need to track people based on their status? That's all she was asking. Showed up on a list. The Moderna-Pfizer funded campaign that created those bots and was tracking all of those people included direct regular emails with lists of tweets to take down and others to verify. Here's an example of those types of emails that went straight to Twitter's lobbyists and content moderators. Many were focused on Zero Hedge, which was suspended, which is a heck of a website. I check it very regularly and follow it often. Here, they write this. This letter comes in from publicgoodprojects.org. That's the LLC, or that's the organization that was created and funded by Bio, which is the lobbying entity for the pharmaceutical, industry, essentially. Bio funds this. So it's an extension of Bio. It's it's the pharmaceutical industry. They create Bio, which is their lobbying arm. They all donate a bunch of money to this. Bio then creates its own little third-party, fact checker called PGP to do whatever they say to make sure that the content fits the narrative of the pharma companies. So PGP, this sort of third party all the way down here at the bottom, they send a letter over to Twitter. This is on February 24, 2022. PGP misinfo report and verification requests. They write, hi all, at Twitter, presumably. Please see attached for this week's misinfo report, along with our batch verification request. So all of their people are also getting verified. They're like dealing drugs for blue check marks. This week, says this person, who identifies as a she, her, and hers, which is very good to know. Don't know if that's reality or not, but that's the identification. The name is actually redacted. But she writes, this week, we saw people opposed to vaccines are capitalizing on the NYT article and about the CDC withholding info. The articles do not contain misinformation themselves, but are using the news to further prove the lack of trustworthiness about organizations. Stop them from doing that. In other words, none of this is illegal. It's not actual misinformation. But they're sharing a story that makes the CDC look bad, is all that is. Another heavily trending article details a German health insurance company official who says that one report doesn't match other reports, and that article is difficult to fact check because it doesn't include the data. All right, so we don't like these stories. These are two bad stories that are really hurtful to our narrative. It's making the official sources look bad, so can you please do something about it? They also included 2 Excel files. So one is the suggested account, probably removals, right, in an Excel spreadsheet. Don't know how big that is or what files are in there. But we also have the weekly Twitter probably verification requests because they're laundering blue check marks through PGP. Oh, this guy's he's a total pro jabber. Give him a blue check mark along with all of the other, all of those other people. Sending it over to Twitter. Again, though, this is not a government entity. Twitter's free to do this. They're free to do it. It's disgusting and unethical. It's antithetical to free speech. It's reprehensible, and every single company should be shamed for doing this type of stuff. But it's not Adam Schiff. It's not Fauci. Li Fang says, notably, this massive push to censor and label COVID misinfo never applied to drug companies. When Big Pharma wildly exaggerated the risks of creating low-cost generic COVID vaccines, Stronger did nothing. The rules applied only to critics of the industry. Yeah, it's their group. That's why they created it. Not to be fair fact checker. Public good, it's like, it means nothing. It's like the Human Fund. I donated to the Human Fund. For what? For humanity. Oh, that's great. That's really generous of you. What is it? Pharma says here, the biopharma sector employs more than 900,000 workers and supports 4.4 million jobs. Those jobs would be at risk if the TRIPS waiver is extended to COVID treatments, right? Meaning if other countries can create low product jabs, it's going to hurt us. That's why we can't do it. Read about the real consequences if we waive our intellectual property. If we give the jabs to the rest of the world, American workers are going to suffer and you're going to die. Because they want to get that money. They want that profit. And you're going to pay for it, world. Nobody gets it for free. Li Fang says, here is my reported piece with more detail. Says, I was given access to Twitter emails. I signed, agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input in anything I did or wrote. Searches were carried out by a Twitter lawyer, so I only saw what I saw could be limited. And of course, go over to Li Fang's Substack. He is creating a Substack. It's at lifang.substack.com, and you can read more about his full report at his website on The Intercept. And of course, we love all of our Twitter journos, Twitter files journos. Li Fang is one of them. And so there will be more to come, certainly, on this and more Twitter files. And we will continue to cover it. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you are watching this video. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, we've got one final segment left here. We're getting into we got some more Twitter thread files, and this is more censorship. We're staying with the same theme, more or less. But we have some big tech collusion lawsuit updates that you can see we're going to get to, well, it's right now, as a matter of fact. Big tech collusion, the lawsuit against the Biden administration continues, and the Missouri Attorney General is releasing all sorts of goodies that we're going to go through today. You see here 3 different tweet threads, almost resembling the Twitter files, Some people might call these the AG files. These are coming from attorneys general in various states, Missouri and Louisiana in particular. But here, the first one came from Andrew Bailey, and we're going to go through a 9-tweet thread, and he's going to reference a very interesting individual, this guy, Rob Flaherty. And he's going to come up in both parts 1 and 2. Then we're going to learn about this fella, Brian Scully, who was formerly at CISA in part 3. But before we can really make sense of what the threads entail, we have to learn more about the people behind the threads, the people sending the emails that the Biden administration was sending to collude with big tech to censor Americans all across the country. The first person we need to meet is Rob Flaherty. Rob Flaherty.
This is Rob, Friedlander, Communications Director on Beto's campaign.
Is this guy?
I'm Rob Flaherty. I'm the Digital Director.
And I'm Ophira Haskell. I'm the Deputy Communications Director for States.
And we're not Jen O'Malley Dillon. She's in a meeting right now, and so we decided we're going for lunch. We're going to go get a salad, and you guys should come with us, and we're going to do the update ourselves. What's been going on?
This is when he was running, working for the Beto campaign.
Super strong debate performance. Debate day is always a long day. Beto and a couple of us played some frisbee beforehand.
Is Beto good at frisbee?
He is fantastic at frisbee.
The ultimate at frisbee.
That's definitely going to cut. So,
Didn't Cory Booker give you guys
Beto.
He shared.
All right.
The Treasury Department.
This is his background.
I started as an Obama organizer in 2008. Before that, I was a prolific high school soccer player. At some point, I ended up working for Amy Klobuchar. I then took a job at the Treasury Department. I left managing our economy to lead communications for a scrappy upstart named Beto O'Rourke running against Ted Cruz in the Senate race. And then now I'm the communications director for his presidential race.
What about you, Flaherty?
And so he actually then is now working at the White House as the presidential communications digital director. If you go over to his Wikipedia, you'll see this is the guy, Rob Flaherty, deputy assistant to the president and the director of digital strategy at the White House. Also got a long history. Creative director at Priorities USA, digital director. We saw that clip of him back in 2019-ish when he was digital director for Beto for America. Also digital director for Biden up until 2020, became the digital director for the transition team, and then worked his way over as the director of digital strategy for the White House, starting in January 2021, present up until the current year. And so we're going to go through the first tweet, keeping in mind that's who is sending the emails. Let's learn more about what happened. The Attorney General files start with Attorney General Andrew Bailey, state of Missouri. He says, "When I took office, I swore I would protect the Constitution. Here's why. We now have hard evidence that President Biden and his administration colluded with social media companies to censor differing viewpoints and to silence misinformation, which they later deemed to be true. The lawsuit against the Biden administration has produced the following discovery." Attorney General Bailey posts this one. He says, "Here's a White House employee asking Twitter to silence Robert Kennedy Jr., a known critic of the White House COVID narrative." This email came out from the White House, whitehouse.who.eop.gov. Executive Office of the President. Email from Clark Humphrey on 1/23/2021, right after Biden takes office. "Hey folks, I wanted to flag below the tweet, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP." From the White House, trying to take out Kennedy. Robert Kennedy Jr. If we can keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre, that would be great. Thanks, Clark. That is the government trying to censor the free speech of a private citizen. Get moving on the process for having it removed from the internet. A direct email from the White House. Here, the Biden White House directs Facebook to shut down a conservative named Tomi Lahren, as well as Tucker Carlson. Here's this email. Confidential email. It says, from redacted at facebook.com, sent 4/14/2021, Biden's in charge. From Facebook to Rob Flaherty, the guy we just talked about. Guess where he's at? The executive office of the presidency. Also copying somebody else at the executive office of the presidency. Subject is regarding Tucker. First email came in from Robert Flaherty. That was on April 14, 2021. He's the director of Joe Biden's digital strategy. He sent this letter in to somebody at Facebook. He says, okay, hey, so-and-so. You know, since we've been on the phone, the top post about vaccines today is Tucker Carlson saying that they don't work. Yesterday was Tomi Lahren, spelled wrong, very rude, disrespectful, saying that she's not going to take one. This is exactly why I want to know what, quote, reduction actually looks like. If reduction means pumping our most vaccine hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's reduction. Okay? This is how our government, this is outrageous. This is how our government is talking to private media companies. This is from Rob Flaherty, the director of digital strategy at the White House. He knows he's at the White House. He knows that he has unlimited power of the federal government and the president, who doesn't even know where he is, behind him. And here's how he jokes. You can fill in the gaps of this conversation. Evidently, he said, we've been on the phone, right? We've been talking all the time. I'm asking you, why are you not doing anything to reduce our vaccine misinformation on your platform called Facebook? Why are you not getting rid of it? They say, we are getting rid of it, sir. We're sorry. Please don't come after us and make Mark Zuckerberg come into Congress again. He's going to fire me if he has to do that. So we are reducing this. We're limiting the spread. We're adjusting the knobs of the algorithm. We're doing whatever. And he says, literally, he's mocking them in this email. It's so disdainful. He has no respect for them at all. Any of these big tech people, like this poor fellow at Facebook, just getting abused by this dude. It's embarrassing. He says, he writes, this is exactly why I want to know what reduction actually looks like. If reduction means pumping out the most vaccine hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's reduction. Like, if that's your idea of a good steak, well, then I don't know what the hell kind of a person you are. Obviously, somebody who's never even had a steak before, you idiot. One of those types of comments. And they don't work for the White House. It's Facebook. There's supposed to be a hard line here between this two stuff. But Rob doesn't care. Somebody responded, thanks. I saw the same thing when we hung up. Running this down now, right? So Facebook's like, please don't murder us, federal government. Another example. Bailey releases this one. Here's an example of big tech towing the line for Biden. Another email from somebody. Now this one's at Google. It's not just Twitter. It's all of them. This one was Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, from this person to Rob Flaherty at the White House regarding YouTube. Oh, they're doing it to us on YouTube. Yeah, we had our whole channel demonetized. I wonder who sent that email. We've had many manual strikes. I wonder who sent those emails. 9 months of demonetized here. Because of what? This one says, thanks, Rob. We appreciate your interest in our announcement today. With regard to your question on the tweet, it is important to keep in mind that borderline content accounts for a fraction of 1% of what is watched on YouTube. So he sends a letter about something on YouTube. Rob now, right? Rob is just this little digital hall monitor. He's just sending emails all day. Can you please take this one down? It scares me. It hurts my feelings. We use machine learning, writes YouTube back, to reduce recommendations of this type of content, including harmful misinfo, which is why I ask you so badly to share this content, share the shorts, share the segments with friends and family, invite them to come over here, because we get suppressed and buried under all of the other content. And they tell us that. We announced in January 2019, we announced changes to our recommendation system to limit the spread of this type of content. They told us that anything that was basically newsworthy, they were going to push to the bottom, and they would let the authoritative sources bubble up to the top. It resulted in a 70% drop in watch time on non-subscribe recommended content in the US. Our goal is to have that drop below 0.5%. Right? It's just twisting the knobs. So just censor certain viewpoints. We were talking about J6. We were talking about COVID. We were talking about the election. We were talking about all sorts of stuff. I will keep you updated with any new policy or product improvements, and will continue to help people find authoritative health information on YouTube. YouTube sends a censor. I'm sorry. The White House sends a censor request. They've got to respond. There's more collusion here. This image is posted, coming out from Discovery. We're proactively monitoring these stories. They give us some examples of stories that are being shared. And they're saying, remove these stories, in other words. Yeah, they're sharing a list of problematic material. They also say that the truth no longer matters to the White House. This email came out from Rob Flaherty. Friday, April 9th, Flaherty writes this one in from the executive office of the presidency at a .gov address, literally from the government. I'm writing from the government here. He says, thanks for this. Hoare should be trying to land a time for us to talk. Rob says, we'll say I'm really mostly interested in what effects the interventions and products you've tested had on increasing vaccine interest within hesitant communities, and which ones have shown promise. Will say, this is unbelievable. I will say, this is from the White House digital director, writing to Facebook. Facebook is the company. I'm mostly interested in what effects the interventions and products you've tested have had on increasing vaccine interest within hesitant communities. So all of you anti-vaxxers, you had the White House, right? The federal government putting pressure on Facebook to turn your hesitation and your hesitant community into vaccine interests. Okay, the White House and the government algorithmically plotting to create products to make you more interested in this thing. This guy says, I really couldn't care less about the products unless they're having measurable impact. Okay, so I don't care about the stuff that's not really moving the needle. And while the product Safari has been interesting, so condescending, right? You've been showing us this product and this product and this product. At the end of the day, I care mostly about what actions and changes you're making to ensure you're not making our country's vaccine hesitancy problem worse. This is a government bureaucrat talking to a Facebook employee like this. It makes my stomach churn. This is your government, right? Like we say, like this stuff happens in foreign countries where the government comes and tells you how to run your shop. The digital director out of the executive office of the presidency is telling this Facebook employee, I want you to ensure you're not making our country's vaccine hesitancy problem worse. I definitely have what I believe to be a non-comprehensive list of products you're building, but I still don't have a good empirical answer on how effective you've been at reducing the spread of the vaccine. They're reducing the spread of the vaccine skeptical content and misinformation to vaccine fence setters in the now folded lockdown. If blank can speak on those things, great. Blank hasn't been able to, but I'm sure someone there can. It's not his company. He's the digital director at the White House. This guy doesn't work for him. This is Facebook. He says, in the electoral context, you've tested and deployed in the electoral, okay, now elections now. He's pissed about COVID, and so now he's going to bash this guy on elections. In the electoral context, you tested and deployed an algorithmic shift that promoted quality news and information about the election. This was reported in the New York Times and also readily apparent to anyone with cursory social listening tools. You only did this, however, after an election that you helped increase skepticism in and an insurrection, which was plotted in large part on your platform. And then you turned it back off. I want some assurances based in data that you are not doing the same thing again here. I don't even, this person is one of the most egregious emails that we have ever seen, even in the Twitter files. It's a direct government email from Rob Flaherty, who self-identifies as the digital director for the White House, from a government email being released from an attorney general where he is literally scolding a private company. You do what I ask you to do. Change the election algorithms. Change it and don't change it back. And I want some assurances based in data that you're not changing it back again. The election algorithm was changed. You changed it back, presumably after the election, and I want it back on. Why'd you turn it back off? And he's still at the White House, right? Rob Flaherty's still at the White House. Has Congress demanded anything, done anything about this? This was posted on January 6th. Here is evidence that the scheme started at the highest, and I mean the highest levels of the White House. Rob Flaherty, again, same guy, coming from a government email account over to a bunch of people at Google. Google 1, Google 2, Google 3, Google 4, Google 5, Google 6, Google 7. Copied more people from the government, the White House Executive Office of the Presidency. Following up on today's conversation, says Rob. Thanks again for the conversation today, which took place on April 22nd, 2021 at 2 in, that was 12 a.m. Yeah, that's a late email. Thanks again for the conversation today. We'll look out for the top trends that you've seen in terms of misinformation about the jab. He says, to recap, all right, as we move away from a supply problem and toward a demand problem, we remain concerned that YouTube is, quote, funneling people into hesitance and intensifying people's hesitancy. Right? We don't like how people are thinking and how they're acting and the things that they're doing. So we need you to change them and how they feel by adjusting the algorithms and stop funneling people into hesitance, funnel them into compliance. We certainly recognize that removing content that is unfavorable to the cause of increasing vaccine adoption is not realistic or even a good solution. But we want to be sure that we have a handle on vaccine hesitancy generally, and we're working towards making the problem better. This is a concern that is shared at the highest, he says, and I mean highest, okay, in parentheses. This dude is one of the most rotten people that we've seen in this entire email drop saga. He's talking about the president, okay? This is a concern that is shared at the highest, and I mean highest levels of the White House. So we'd like to continue a good faith dialogue about what is going on under the hood here. I'm the on hook for reporting out. We'd like to continue a good faith dialogue. And if you don't do what we want you to do, guess who's on notice about this? The president, highest level at the White House. And you can understand that if we don't get this worked out, like if you don't show me what's going on under the hood there, as he says in his email, open up your company, right? This is that communist Gestapo coming into your house and saying, why don't you show me this and show me that and give me this and give me that. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. That's what he's doing. Hey, Google, open your hood. Tell me what you're doing to censor our enemies. And if you can't possibly do this, guess what? Our good faith dialogue, it may not turn into good faith anymore. These emails, says Andrew, confirm what we've known all along about the Biden administration. They've been colluding with social media companies to stifle opposing voices. I will continue to push back on this blatant attack on the First Amendment. From Andrew. Now, there are 2 more threads, right? That was only the first part. He is dropping these like they're Twitter files, and they're a lot of fun. So he's going to tell us more about Rob Flaherty in part 2. And then in part 3, short threads, we're going to talk about Brian Scully, who is the former agent over at CISA. And we'll listen to an interview between him and a student or somebody over at Harvard. But before we talk about any of that, let's remember that we need our survival food and our survival gear from our friends over at 4patriots.com. As you know, a food shortage could be coming, even here in the United States. We've got drought, inflation, new policies. Our food supply is near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years, super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, they stack easily, they've got different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and get 10% off anything in your first purchase on the store, including their 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale goes to charities that support our veterans and their families. And you can go to 4patriots.com, get your chef hat, start building your stockpile today. Don't forget to use code Robert at checkout and get your survival gear. All right, my friends, now it's time to turn our attention to part 2, carrying on with Rob Flaherty and some of the most egregious censorship in our country that we have seen. Attorney General Bailey continues, he says, our office now has even more hard evidence that President Biden and his administration has been working with social media to suppress speech. Rob Flaherty sent this one out, May 6, 2021. Rob Flaherty, again from the government, sends this email to Facebook. He says, Dear Facebook, so I guess I have 2 questions for you here. 1, this person references 3 widest reach posts. I believe this is one. He says, for one, this one is still up. It's gotten 365,000 shares with 4 comments. We've talked about this in a different context, but how does something like that happen? The top post, the one from Wisconsin, has 2.1 million comments. Am I looking at one instance of sharing too? What is your assessment of what's going on here? It says, it won't come as a shock to you that we're particularly interested in your demotion efforts, which I don't think we have a good handle on. And based on the below, it doesn't seem like you do either. Not to sound like a broken record, but how much content is being demoted? And how effective are you at mitigating reach, and how quickly? As I've said, I don't think our position is that you should remove vaccine hesitant stuff. However, slowing it down seems reasonable. I just can't describe what it means or how you know it's working. Also, health groups. He says, sure. But it seems more likely that anti-vax stuff is moving in groups that are not about health, but are more, mom-centric and other spaces. Strikes me as the issue here is less from single-use anti-vaccine accounts and more about people, who do other things who are also vaccine hesitant. Yeah, like the mom groups, talking about soccer class or whatever, soccer practice. And then they also talk about the jabs. Can we go after them too? Seems like your, quote, dedicated vaccine hesitancy policy isn't stopping the disinfo dozen, and they're being deemed as not dedicated. So it feels like the problem likely carries over to groups. As a last thing, he says, she's this guy. I'd be interested in seeing this 100 ranking in terms of reach from the things you aren't actively promoting in the info panel. he wants to get in there and manipulate their algorithm because he's unhappy about this. Tucker Carlson email and the video that we talked about in the first thread. Flaherty disagrees with Facebook because they didn't remove Tucker. April 14th email comes out. Rob Flaherty writes the following. Comes from the government website, government email. Rob says, after Facebook refused to remove the Tucker Carlson video, Rob Flaherty said, okay, Facebook, I guess this is a good example of your rules in practice then, and a chance to dive in on questions as they're applied. How was this not violative? The second half of the segment is raising conspiracy theories about the government hiding information. And it's not just about one manufacturer. What exactly is the rule for removal versus demoting? He's demanding. Flaherty also says, moreover, you say reduce versus demoted. What does that even mean? There's 40,000 shares on that video. Who is seeing it right now? How many? How effective is it? And we've gone a million rounds on this in other contexts, so pardon what may seem like deja vu to me. But on what basis is, quote, visit the COVID-19 Information Center for Vaccine Resources the best thing to tag a video that says the vax doesn't work? Not for nothing, but last time we did this dance, he says, it ended in an insurrection. Sent from my iPhone. Rob Flaherty. Very, very dramatic. In addition to being demanding. He doesn't run Facebook. He doesn't run Google. He doesn't run Twitter. They're not his companies. Americans have free speech in this country. We also have the ability to engage without the government officially demanding us to silence ourselves. Did he forget about that rule? It looks like he did. Flaherty tells Twitter in another email that if your product is appending misinformation to our tweets, that seems like a fundamental issue. These emails came back out. On Thursday, August 11th, emails fly back and forth. Here, I'm happy to send you an economist who can explain the basics to your guys. Twitter responds, hey, Rob, thanks for reaching out. I believe you're referring to our Birdwatch product feature, which I think now is Community Notes. Here's the latest information about how it works. We'd be happy to arrange a meeting to walk you through how it works. We're collecting feedback. Says, okay, well, happy to talk through it, but if your product is appending misinformation to our tweets, that seems like a pretty fundamental issue. All right, so they must have got hit with a community watch, a bird watch thing. Rob Flaherty's like, I posted this about something, and then boom, you're a liar. Boom, Community Notes, or, somebody at the White House is posting something. And then they get that misinformation. He says, you're appending misinformation to our tweets. It must have been a White House tweet, right? The White House posted something, and then there was a Birdwatch, Community Notes. Actually, Joe's a liar. So he sends him an email. Why did you do that to our account? Well, here's how it works. This is Birdwatch. It's the community, idiots, not us. Well, your product is misrepresenting our narrative. They don't like that. Facebook offers some assurances. This email comes from Facebook back over to Rob. Rob sent an email previously. He's demanding everything he's demanding, very demanding individual. And so Facebook responds back to Andy, copying Rob Flaherty. Andy is also at the executive office of the president at a .gov address. So Facebook responds to Andy, copies Rob Flaherty. They say, Andy, thanks for taking the time to talk to us again on Friday. These guys are in meetings. They're talking all the time. It's ridiculous. What are they talking about? Per our discussion, I wanted to follow up with the next steps. All right, as discussed, we will make blank, who has been coordinating with the product, to work with you on a regular basis, okay? You're now going to have a full-time liaison. We're also going to share additional data. We've got new internal analytics that we're developing that's going to help us understand COVID-related content. So Facebook is now going to basically create this dashboard, essentially, and just share all of that with the White House. This is a top priority for us, and we'll keep you updated on our progress. You also asked us about levers for reducing virality of vaccine hesitancy content. You want us to shut that up. In addition to the policies that we have already discussed and additional changes, more is going to be coming. We're removing misinfo. We focus on reducing the virality. Experts have advised us it's important for people to be able to discuss their personal experiences and concerns. We're going to remove group pages, accounts when they're disproportionately promoting this content. Okay, so even if you're, in one of those mom groups that he was talking about previously, if you're a little bit too much, anti-vax versus soccer practice talk, illegal. More on this as we proceed. Finally, mentioned in the policies, WhatsApp approach, misinformation, limits the variety of messages, and he's talking about WhatsApp. All right, so the White House sends over a letter to Facebook. We need you guys to censor a lot more, or else good faith conversations go out the window. The highest level of the White House is interested in this. Things are going to become problematic. Facebook responds, no need to go there. We'll comply. We have a multi-billion-dollar company we don't want you to divest us from. Facebook assures Flaherty that they're also going to remove claims of public health tells us have been debunked. So another email also from Google or from Facebook, right? So they're laying out their whole policy. Sure, whatever you need. Here's our whole manual. We're not going to read through all of it. Flaherty accuses Twitter of Calvin Ball. Okay, now Calvin Ball is from a very excellent comic. It sort of offends me that this guy knows what it is because it's a great comic, and the fact that he's read it diminishes its excellence. But Rob Flaherty is talking about Calvin Ball. Calvin Ball comes from Calvin and Hobbes, and there's a game in the comic where Calvin just makes up the rules as they go along, right? He's this young guy with this tiger, and they're just playing stuff, and like weird rules happen, weird things happen. However you want it to go, it goes. Calvin always wins. It's always a fun game. So here, Rob Flaherty is bringing it up. He says, hi, Rob. I'm around if you'd like to dial. This is coming over from Twitter. The first email went out December 17, 2021. Flaherty writes over to Twitter. He says, new to the thread here, but this all reads to me like you're bending over backwards to say this isn't causing confusion on public issues. If the AP deems it confusing enough to write a fact check about it, and you deem it confusing enough to create an event for it, how on earth is it not confusing enough for it at least to have a label? Very upset about a doctored video of the First Lady. Remember, they were very upset about Joe Biden's tongue video as well. He's doing that thing. He says, total Calvin Ball, right? You guys are just doing whatever you want over there. Flaherty demands that Facebook step up its operations to remove bad information. So he sends another email. He's angry now. May 12th, Flaherty sends this in. All right, over there at facebook.com, he says, sure. All right, they're first connected to authoritative information, but then you, as of last night, were presenting an anti-vaccine account with less than 1,000 followers alongside at level with those pinned accounts. Why was your platform putting these posts up here where they were posted? He says, look, here's the thing. You know, and I know that the universe of undecided people searching Instagram for vaccines, as compared to, say, Google, is probably low. But removing bad information from search is one of the easy, low-bar things you guys can do to make people like me think you're taking action. And if you're not getting that right in italics, it raises even more questions about the higher bar stuff. You say in your note that you remove accounts that discourage vaccination from appearing in recommendations, even though you're using primarily to give yourself wiggle room. You also said that you don't promote those accounts in search. Not sure what else there is to say. YouTube, he says, for their warts, has done pretty well at promoting authoritative info in search results. It's true. Try to find our videos. They don't show up because only the authoritative searches show up from the news idiots at the local news, while keeping the bad stuff off of those surfaces. Pinterest doesn't even show you any results other than official information when you search for vaccines. I don't know why you guys can't figure this out. So condescending. If this were not a government official, right? Like if he didn't work for the White House, if he worked for any other business or any other company or any other person, you'd say this guy's the biggest a-hole in the bit, and you would never work with them again. He said, I'd say, get the hell out of my office. Don't ever call me again. Don't ever contact our firm again. Don't ever even think about calling me or looking at me again. Don't even watch my show. Unsubscribe from my channel, psycho. Because of this condescension. It's not his company. He's acting like a little dictator because he wants to be, and he's probably got the full approval of the White House. Andrew Bailey says, I want to protect Missourians. Suppressing speech is insane. We're not going to allow that to happen on my watch. And we finally have part 3. Now we're going to learn more about part 3. In our efforts, writes Andrew, to protect the First Amendment, we deposed this fellow right here, Brian Scully, worked at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency called CISA. Key player in the federal government's information to suppress mis, dis, and malinformation. Let's listen to this fellow and learn more about him. He was on an interview over from this channel, which is a very interesting channel.
Welcome to the breakdown.
You can see this channel is, if we highlight it here, it tells us that we have 19.9 thousand subscribers. It is the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. This video got 221 views about 2 years ago. The explanation of this video is, amidst concerns of health disinformation in the current pandemic, scholars keep an eye on the 2020 election. In this episode, BK staff Omu interviews Brian Scully from CISA. Let's listen in to this very insightful conversation.
My name is Umu. I'm a staff fellow on the Berkman Klein Center's Assembly Disinformation Program.
Okay.
Our topic for discussion today is the upcoming November 2020 election.
Great.
The 2016 election in so many ways laid bare the connection between countering disinformation and protecting democratic processes.
Okay.
And I think that it's been difficult since the 2016 election to quantify the causal impact of disinformation on public content.
That's true, because there wasn't much causal impact of misinformation or disinformation on the election. It's just kind of something you guys invented so you could regain control of the narrative and censor all of their political opponents of the Democrats.
Confidence in democratic institutions. We know that foreign actors work to systematically influence the election, and we know that they're working to do the same this fall. My guest today is Brian Scully from the Department of Homeland Security, who will introduce himself.
Sure. Currently, I run the DHS Countering Foreign Influence Task Force, which is in the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I've been doing that for about 2 years now.
Awesome.
Great.
Right. So talk a little bit about, a little bit more in depth about what you do at DHS on CISA.
Sure. So like I said, I lead a small team. We're focused on, we call countering foreign influence, but really what we're trying to do is build national resilience to foreign influence activities. And so for us, a lot of what we do is public education and public awareness, outreach to different communities, provide resources that folks can use to better understand both the risk and then ways to mitigate the risk. For us in particular.
So is that like a newsletter or something? Like to reach out to communities and provide information? It's like an email list or something? Like, is that what they do?
We're trying to reduce the amount that Americans engage with this information.
Oh, they're trying to reduce the amount that Americans engage. Oh, that sounds like they're trying to shut off the spigot of disinfo and misinfo. Well, where does that come from? Where does that so-called misinfo and disinfo, malinfo and whatever, where does it all come from? First of all, who quantifies it? Who gets to label it and articulate it as those things? But where does it come from? It comes from people. It comes from humanity. We all speak it, and it comes out of our mouths. So that means if you want us to engage with it less, that means you have to suppress people who are saying those things. And it's not only hurting them for having their speech censored and suppressed, it's also hurting the people who want that information. The people who say, I get educated by learning new things. It's hurting both sides. That's why we don't do it in this country unless you're this guy.
And so a lot of our products and information are focused on that. We're also working specific to the
Suppression.
election. We work a lot with state and local election officials to help them with content around the security of the election, right? So helping citizens understand, how to vote, where to vote, how absentee ballot works, things like that.
Wow, what a stellar job. So this guy's like a volunteer senior citizen at a voting center. How to vote, where to vote. Brilliant. And if you make a joke about voting on Wednesdays, then you're a terrorist criminal who needs to be executed. What a thrilling job for this guy. How to vote, where to vote. But it's got a cool acronym, though.
We do that in support of state and local election officials. And so our two main areas are really trying to help folks understand what's going on around the 2020 election, and then building broader kind of long-term resilience to disinformation amongst the American people.
All right, so it's actually an interesting interview because these two people are talking in circles. They're just both petrified of a reality that doesn't really exist. But that is Brian Scully. Now let's see what this final thread from the AG files has for us. He says, Brian Scully was deposed, and here's what we've got. CISA housed in the Department of Homeland Security, and created to ward off foreign cyber attacks, has now been weaponized to suppress domestic speech. As we just heard and just talked about, that's what they work on. This is the same group that launched the Disinformation Governance Board with singing Nina Jankowicz. And due to the immense public backlash, they formally disbanded that group. But its work continues. Jen Easterly, the head of CISA, believes that the infrastructure in CISA doesn't mean protecting roads and bridges. It means cognitive infrastructure. That means suppressing speech. The depositions focused on Scully, leader of the mis, dis, and malinformation team, the gentleman we just heard from, started in 2018 as the Countering Foreign Influence Task Force to ward off foreign attacks. In 2021, CIFTIF changed its name, reflecting foreign threats to domestic speech. A couple of exhibits came out from yesterday's deposition here below. In this one, Twitter censored, or in their words, actioned, accounts for their civic integrity policies after CISA flagged them. Email came in from the government at cisa.dhs.gov. Please see the below reporting from Maryland. Thanks, redacted. Goes over to Twitter. Twitter responds at twitter.com. Thank you for raising this to our teams. We have actioned these accounts under our civic integrity policy. Thank you. We'll go ahead and nuke those accounts. In another email, we see CISA offering to help major social media companies connect with local election offices. From Facebook to CISA, copying government 1, government 2, Facebook 1, government 3, government 4, government 5, Facebook 2, Facebook 3. Subject account security. Facebook says, hello, Team CISA. Hope you are all well. In our conversation a few weeks ago, you mentioned that your team could potentially help connect us with local election offices. Is this something you're willing to help us with? Additionally, we can provide training for them on account security best practices if you think that could be helpful too. Anything else we can do in the meantime, let us know. Facebook now wants to get ultra involved and intertwined with all of the election officials so that they can get rid of all the election misinformation that they don't like. And Bailey says, to defend the First Amendment, it's imperative that we stand against the federal government weaponizing its resources. Missouri will continue to lead the charge. He says, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We look forward to releasing more documents as well as the highlights of the Scully deposition in the days to come. And of course, there will be a lot more of this, and we will continue to follow, of course, Attorney General Andrew Bailey as he drops and drips those out over the coming days. Thank you for joining us as we do. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video wherever it is you're watching this so that we can see you on the next one. All right, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We got 3 nice hearty sections. We talked all about the Biden confidential documents dilemma. A lot of fun there, and we're going to continue to see what happens on that one. Hopefully we have a press conference tomorrow with Karine, and she's got some more answers for us because there's even more documents now and we haven't heard from them yet. We also did Twitter Files 15, so if you missed that one, we also covered that one. A little bit of a shorter thread, but a good one. We learned how disgusting the government is. This one, though, was really not the government. It was Pfizer and the big pharmaceutical companies, which is, they're all on the same team there. And then lastly, of course, the updates on the big tech collusion lawsuit. Did some fun threads there from the Missouri Attorney General. But now it is time to hear from you, my friends, and to see what you have to say about all of this and more. We had some super chats come in over on YouTube. We had some chats over on our Rumble chats. I see some good friends over there. What's going on? I see Donut Mind Me's in the house. Annie, get your guns over there. We have Debbie F, Jan X in the house. Peter Tags over there, and Electro Voice over on Rumble. But now we have to log into the YouTube Super Chats because, it logs me out for some reason on occasion. So we just have to do it all over again. Usually right in the middle of a show, because why wouldn't it do that? It's what it normally does. Fortunately, we're moving around quickly, and it's loading as we speak. And here it is. And we had a couple of them start us off. Melanie Schwartz is in the house. Thank you, Melanie. And I saw this one come out at the start of the show. Saw it fly by. Thank you very much for sending it in. It says, thank you for your awesome insights. Keep up the great work. We appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you back, Melanie. And oh, here it is. Here it is. Thank you for sending that in. Very nice and generous of you. And I'm honored to be here to spend time with you and to learn this stuff and to go through it together. There's going to be a lot more to come. Just Cause says, how about Hunter's rent payments on an owned home? Yeah, there was that background check. I think we had that document last week, and it was like $49,000, wasn't it, a month for rent? And then somebody actually looked up the rents in that area, and like the highest rent was like $6,000 a month. All right, $50,000 a month rent's a pretty serious rent. Or they're just laundering money. Just Cause. Good to see you. Zulu came in with this one. Zulu, we got this one earlier, but let me read it again. Zulu says, it's all good. Joe psychically released the documents ahead of time, which he can do, independent from linear perception of time, because that's how presidential psychic skills work. Better luck next time, suckers. Good comment from Zulu. I think it's fair. Trump did that. Biden can do it too. That's great. And Biden can do it right after the FBI raids his home. Dolphin Fan 73 says, hi in the house, sending in the Shibu sticker. Shibu Inu sticker? Thank you for that one, Dolphin Fan. And we're grateful for your support. Those were all of the great chats that came in from our friends on YouTube. And we're very, very grateful for those super chats that came in. Let's jump over to Twitter and see if there's any tweets, any comments on our tweet thread. Holy moly, we have a single viewer over there. And guess what? It's probably me. Let's see if there's any comments over there. We got a Calvin and Hobbes comic. Calvin and Hobbes is great. Sooner or later, their games turn into Calvin Ball, just like politics. Yeah, this is one of my favorite comics as a boy. I mean, I read by Bill Watterson. I basically read all of them when I was a young boy. And I think I learned some life lessons from it. It's a pretty good comic. And this is what Calvin Ball looks like. It's basically every type of thing that just exists. It's a great comic. And I'm a little offended that Rob Flaherty knows about it, unfortunately. All right, let's see what else we have. Let's do just a quick content pre-screen as we scroll through some of this. Okay, here's a good one. Here's a good one from Brenda. Brenda posted this one. Brenda's here. Biden was walking up the stairs. Here's what we see. Oh my God. There's boxes there, Joe. There's another one. Joe, there's another one. All those classified documents over there. Got to be careful there, Joe. They're just popping up all over the place. All right, that came in from Brenda. We had another one from CA Human. Says, Dana Lewis, is that the White House counsel that left in October? War Room reported that at 5 p.m. that she was the one that found the documents. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, we're trying to get the names of the of the first person who was on scene. We did flesh out our timeline a little bit over the weekend. We do know who one of the two attorneys showed up on the same day. One of them was called Pat Moore, this guy. So we do know who one of them is, according to the Washington Post. Pat Moore showed up. We don't know who the second person was, whether that was Dana or somebody else, but hopefully more will be revealed on that one. But that was over on Twitter. Thank you for that, CA Human. We had another one come in. Robert Grammer says, for sale, mobile skiff once parked in your garage allows storage of classified documents up to top secret. Wow, that's a mobile skiff. It's pretty too. Here, this one from CA Human. Greetings in the house. Danny McWilliams said you had to play him singing twice. You're just mean. That's also true. Here, the only permanent rule in Calvin Ball is that you can't play it the same way twice. The score is still Q to 12. There you go. It's a good example of Calvin Ball. Here's another one. Shout out to the trolls and eggheads on the locals chat. Also, the hippies. Hippies, Rob, you have hippies in the chat. Diversity is your strength. This is a very inclusive show. Okay, we are very welcoming and diverse acceptance. Identify however the hell you want. I don't care. Just visit robertlikesgold.com. I don't care. Here, we have another one from Paul Minot says, sometimes it's like this on Twitter. I don't give up. That's how it feels right now, Paul. Yeah, that's how it feels. Hey, Paul, it's me and you right here, baby. It's just us. It's cozy in here. It's nice. It's nice hanging out, my man. Cozy over here on Twitter. There's nobody around. And we're gonna get the Zoom, the triple Zoom, going all the way back. All right, and so those are for my friends over on Twitter. Of course, we also have our after party, which is where we're going next. We have a tip over from our locals community. Says, Rob, thanks for at least trying to read us the German letter. It made me LOL. Sometimes you can tease out a word or two. You're like, oh, I know what that word is. Like COVID, or like, I think I got hashtag. How do they say hashtag in German? Is it Sonnentag? I think that's what I saw over there. Sonnentag. So I guess that's hashtag. So I guess we all learned some German today. At least I did. I'll have to look it up. All right. So we're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see they're chatting away over there. We've got some comments and some memes to get to. But before we wrap it up, my friends, of course, let's say thank you and goodbye to everybody who makes this show possible. Of course, we're starting with our friends over the sponsors of the show, which, gosh, this timeline is really huge. It really makes it difficult to navigate. Our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com is where we're going next. Also, don't forget to check out our friends over at 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to save 10% off anything in the store at 4patriots.com. Survival gear, survival food. Don't starve to death. Also, check out robertlikesgold.com. If you want to know the truth, it's true. I do like gold. And it's all revealed at robertlikesgold.com. Protect your savings. And of course, our law firm. Located in Arizona, we help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. We offer free case evaluations. Thank you for referring clients to us. You keep us busy, and you make what we do here possible. Online at rrlawaz.com. And also, thank you to our mods. Our mods mod down the forts for us. Viantic is Prime. He's not usually here on Mondays because of game night. But big ultra shout-outs to K-Bean. I see K-Bean in the house. We've got a bunch of members in the chat. Shout-outs to Ned Frankley, Curtis Bartle. Holy F, we have Gloria B. No Jabskis in the house. K-Bean says, all mods. Here, let's go to this one. Here's from K-Bean. Does the rainbow show up? There it is. Beautiful. That's from K-Bean, one of our mods. We've got Just Cause in the house. We've got Lean in the house, playing hooky. Ronnie Cole, who I think is over at Trump W now. Zulu came by. Good to see you again, Zulu. And our friend Geomancy Games, Geo, who is also on YouTube. But that is it, my friends, for us here on the show. We are going over to locals for an after party. We also have member-only streams in the mornings. We'll do one tomorrow on YouTube members or on locals members. We hope you join us. They're fun, a little more casual, not as prepared. We just kind of fly through the headlines. So, Lean is not in the house. We miss Lean. Tell Lean we miss her. We miss you, Lean. Hopefully you're having a beautiful night. But that is it, my friends, for us on the day. We're going over to Locals for our Locals after party, and we look forward to seeing you there. But if not, then I hope to see you right back here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.